Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
अथात्र विषयानन्दः ब्रह्मानन्दांशरूपभाक् निरूप्यते द्वारभूतः तदंशत्वं श्रुतिर्जगौ एषोऽस्य परमानन्दः यो खण्डैकरसात्मकः अन्यानि भूतान्येतस्य मात्रामेवोपभुञ्जते शान्ता घोरास्तथा मूढा Ghora, it's a Mahaprana, so you have to aspirate on that syllable. Shanta ghorastatha mudha. Manaso vrittayastridha. Vairagyam kshantiraudaryam. Ityadya shantavrittayah. Trishna sneho ragalobhau. Ityadya ghora vrittayah. Sammoho bhayamityadyaah. Katitha mudha vrittayah. Continuing the discussion on the three moods, the three primary moods or states of the mind, and then the three primary states or moods of the mind. What are they? Shanta, which corresponds to what is called, which corresponds to Sattva. Shanta corresponds to what? Sattvic qualities, Sattva. And then Ghora corresponds to Rajasic mind, Rajas. And finally Mudha, yes, Tamas. So all the Purva Pakshis in the tradition are called Mudhas, right? So that says something about the mental states. Purva Pakshis means the contentions, the opposing contentions that are not properly, framed or thought about. So now the Vidyaranya Swami is giving a wonderful clue as to why, even though everything in this universe is what? Satchitananda, how come that Ananda seems so elusive? How come I cannot experience it? Even though the one who is experiencing is asking. The one who is experiencing everything is saying, I can experience everything except this Ananda. This joy seems to be very illusory. Dukkha comes very easily. Sukha means what? Happiness. Happiness does not come. Dukkha comes so easily. At the drop of a hat, I can get dukkha very easily. And then sukha, kabhi kabhi. Kabhi kabhi means sometimes, sometimes. Yeah. The repetition is for emphasis. And so, therefore, there is a problem here in the sense that the Vedanta Shastra, seems to be making a promise that knowing this knowledge, you will be free of samsara. And what is samsara other than fear and grief, correct? That is what is samsara. Fear, grief, reactivity, anger, this is what is the building blocks of samsara. And here I have been studying this with that hope, and still nothing is happening. If one were to ask, then the Swami Vidyaranya, with the help of the Shruti, throws back the reason why one is not happy back to oneself. So then it becomes an inside job. Yeah, it's no longer anything it's in the true Vedantic fashion, where the finger that is pointing everywhere, at the Jagat, at the neighbor, at the in-law, at the outlaw, at in-laws who behave like outlaws, all these fingers that are pointing finally has to come and roost home. Where? It has to look here. This is not about self-blame, but it is about an honest look as to whether and to what extent I myself perhaps am in charge of my own quality of life. Perhaps I block those because of my mental states being so variable, changing, and being, steeped in rajas and what's the other one? Tamas. I am perhaps not able to enjoy life. And this is a very big wake-up call, because if we are waiting for Vedanta to come and take away all our problems, kya hoga? What will happen? Nothing. Somebody keeps on asking, if I study Vedanta, will all my problems go away? The answer, the short answer is no. Oh, then why am I studying it? Because you will be free enough to even entertain the problem of the neighbors without being afflicted. What to talk of your own problems? You will be free enough to abide in a limping body, a mind that most of the time you feel like saying never mind, and the senses which leave you senseless. It just is how it is. So you are free to abide in a complaining body-mind-sense complex if the person who is complaining is made free of complaints. And that is the prasada of Vedanta, that the complaining person is free, is no longer has anything to complain about, free enough to live in a limping body-mind-sense complex. This is the present of Vedanta. And so if there is a reason why, I find that my enjoyment of life is blocked, then we have to take a greater and a deeper look at the three mental states that are described at length by Swami Vidyaranya. The first one is very easy. It is a no complaining state. What is that called? Shanta or Sattvic state of mind. Where, and this, even the most Rajasic person and the most Tamasic person will have a few and far between, moments of this Shanta. Has experienced this Shanta Vritti, the mental modification called Shanta, the Sattvic state of mind. Even the most, person who is steeped in restlessness and inertia has experienced this. You can see that. You can see that even in, some kind of people given to crime, somebody who is a habitual offender and, grabs this person with the intent to put an end to their life and then wants to just, kill them and, divest them of their belongings and move on without a thought. And this is what this person has done. This fellow has killed many times before without the slightest compunction. But in that one moment, what happens? Something other than the normal ways of being take over this person, and he says, okay, I'm going to let you go today. And that may become the end of this person. Knowing well that, okay, this person is going to go straight to the police. They're not going to go home now. They're going to go call 911, and now the police will be after me and my days are numbered. Knowing full well sometimes the person will let the person go. So there is that Shantavritti, although, it is few and far between in people who are given to crime, it is still very much there. Everybody has experienced it. Where nothing matters. Some days one is so full of happiness, joy, and perhaps not joy, but a contentment that anything happens, you are not disturbed. This is Shantavritti. And then in all these vrittis, they describe a few key qualities, and then it says ityadyaha. Iti adyaha means etc. So we have to fill in the blanks because there are many more, but because of the not fitting in the meter and the ease of, because the whole point is not to analyze the states of the mind, the whole point is to understand whether the joy comes from the objects or the subjects, and how there is a link between the two, because all joy comes from the subject. So therefore this discussion about the conditions of the mind, although important, is not the final thing in this chapter. So therefore Swami Vidyaranya gives a few pointers to that state of mind and says etc., so that we can fill in the blanks. So certain days one wakes up, it's a good hair day, everything goes exactly as planned, nobody is, let anybody say or do anything, I'm not disturbed. And I become more forgiving, I become more tolerant of people, I am more compassionate, I am more accommodative, I am calm. This is Shantavritti. And then, in the Shantavritti, as we are going to see later, there is a high level of autonomy for the subject. It gives the I, the subject, a high level of autonomy and a lot of elbow room to abide as exactly its own nature, abide in the form of its own nature. And we know full well that when we are going with the cosmic flow, when we are doing what comes naturally to us, then things go well, correct? Yeah. There is no conflict, there is no fear, there is no push-pull, there is no back and forth, there is no stress. It takes a lot of work to go against the flow. Even though it may look tempting, but actually it's much harder. So the wise person sees the sign of the times and goes with the flow in all matters. And in matters of the mind, the sattva vritti, the shanta vritti, the sattvic state of the mind is the most natural for all people. Regardless of the place of birth, regardless of ethnicity, nationality, gender, age, the sattvic state of the mind comes naturally. That is something which is important to note. But then think about the Herculean effort that we have to put to go away from this. And think of all the difficulties that come in the way of not going with the flow. And so this most natural state of balance, a mind in repose, is the mind in sattva, where the mind and the heart are in alignment. And this is seen as perfect health in the ancient Ayurvedic system of medicine. Next week we are going to have some lectures here. There is a visiting Ayurvedic doctor, so you will hear him say the same thing. And in ancient Chinese medicine, this acupuncture also, they say that the mind should sink into the heart. Meaning there is perfect alignment between the emotive component and the, thinking component. There is not that kind of a battle that we find all the time. My head wants this, but my heart wants this. And I'm afraid to do this because I'll be taken advantage of. That is not there. In the Shanta Vritti, it is just it is the mind in its most natural state. And then, so therefore, what are the advantages of being or bringing the mind back into the natural state? One thing is, there is no conflict in the heart. And when there is no conflict, when I simply am, Brahman shines. Which aspect of Brahman shines? Sat, Chit or Ananda, we have talked of all three. What is Sat? That which is existence. What is Chit? Knowledge, sentience. What is Ananda? Limitlessness. So the first two to shine, we can see, okay, am I there or not? Some days it's hard to answer the question. But today, hopefully, if I ask the question, are you here? What will you say?
Yes.
Excellent. So yes, and so that forms the basis of what? Sat. If you say yes to the question, are you here? Then that is Sat shining, and Sat is answering the question. And the Sat that refuses to be negated. The Sat that never says, I am not, cannot. You can say, I am not in Coimbatore, I am not in Germany, I am not in France. That's it. We are talking of the body. But a Sat that never says, I am not, is the one who answered yes. And then in this reckoning, in this understanding that I am, there is something else other than Sat that is answering the question, correct? Because if I ask the same question of the pot, hello pot, are you here? No answer is coming. Why?
It's not finished.
Yeah, Chit is not manifest in this, through the subtle body. The Chit is there very much, but it doesn't have a way of expressing itself. But if I say, are you here? Quickly you say yes. So it's Sat and Chit in action quickly. Correct? So, but then, are you joyful? Are you contented? That third one always is like an iffy thing. The first two just burst out without any effort. But the third one needs a medium of expression, which is the state of the mind. And if the medium of expression is clear, then everything shines in it. And if the medium of expression is cloudy, and we are going to come to some very good imagery with this. If the medium of expression is cloudy, then that Ananda will turn into a cloudy Ananda. And what kind of Ananda is a cloudy Ananda? No Ananda, yeah. No Ananda, because, it's an Ananda fraught with pratibandhas, inhibitions of all kinds. And Swami Vidyaranya has a beautiful way of throwing the whole thing back on the individual. You keep saying Sat and Chit are effortlessly manifest in me. Why not the Ananda? Take a look at your own mind and recognize what the vrittis are here. And if you recognize the vrittis, and I told you yesterday, that's where we stopped, is that we have to slowly go back to Sattva. According to the teaching given by the Bhagavad Gita, Nirdvandvo Nitya Sattvasthaha Niryoga Kshema Atmavan Bhava. Niryoga Kshemo Bhava Atmavan Bhava Arjuna. Atmavan here means not the one having an Atma, the one who falls back on oneself. Yeah. You fall back on yourself. Lift yourself up when you find yourself in the other two vrittis, and we are going to look at those more clearly. But the sattva I am spending the most time on because this comes very, very naturally. And the final advantage to being in a sattvic frame of mind is that I depend less on the world for my joy. Yeah, already. So think about that. Because if the mind, usually what happens, I need a whole society to prop me up, to keep me in good humor. Starting with the medical practitioners, the chiropractors, this and all these people, and starting with neighbors and friends and significant others. And not these are just people. And then we have this whole world of gadgetry that very conveniently starts with the word I. iPod, iPhone, that means without you are nothing without that phone. iPad, iMad, iSad, these are all the consequences of being technologically dependent on things other, on these gadgets for my happiness. This is what the travesty is, especially in the contemporary age, where we find newer and newer way of distracting ourselves. And these new inventions and these new forms of dependencies are advertised as indispensable. Like without this, you cannot live. Without this, your life is zero. Without this, you cannot have any happiness at all. And then the mind buys into this because the mind generally is outward looking, because the mind functions with the help of the senses. And where are the senses looking, outward or inward? Outward. Paranchikhani vyatrinat swayambhu parak pashyati nacha antaratman kaschid dhiraha atmanam aikshat avritta chakshuhu amritatvam icchan. So the predilection, because the sense organs are facing outside, the mind is also scattered because the mind follows the sense organs like a, Mary had a little lamb. There is a poem. And everywhere she went, the lamb was sure to go. She went to school, it also went to school. And, and she went home, it also went home. So like this, the mind becomes the sheep. And that's why I'm using this metaphor. A non-thinking sheep flock mentality the mind gets, and it starts to follow the sense organs. Whereas it should be the other way around. The mind is the reins we see in the Kathopanishad. But the mind totally gives up the reins, and the sense organs graze freely in the world of objects. And the mind follows, ye chahiye, oh chahiye, give me this, give me. Oh yeah, that looks nice. How come that is not mine? Where is that gone? How can I live without this? This is why the other two vrittis start to make home in the mind. They start to hone in, and very soon replace my contentment, replace my natural state of being with anger, fear, discontent and grief. This is why there is a চ্যুতি, there is a fall from the sattva, because I follow the sense organs to wherever they lead me, and everything starts to look good, especially things that do not belong to you look especially good. And so the point is to get back to that sattvic state of mind. And this is going to be iterated again later on. Because when I am in the sattvic state of mind, there is a great freedom. I do not become dependent on things other than myself to manufacture joy. Because when I am on things, dependent on things other than myself, it is a manufactured joy. Because it's a joy created by the contact of the subject with the object. And so any kind of a joy that is manufactured by an artificial proximity of the subject with the object is sure to be finite, correct? Whereas what we are talking about is the non-manufactured, limitless Ananda, which is one's own Swarupa, which is one's own nature. And if I don't understand it, at best I can have a few encounters with this so-called manufactured joy, whose main ingredient is the Swarupa joy alone, because there is only one source of joy. Just like there is only one source of Sat and Chit. So really speaking, I am using my own joy, my own source to manufacture it. First of all, I artificially superimpose the subject joy on the object, just like the dog with the bone that I explained last time. And then I get sad because that projection is always a finite projection. Why is the projection a finite projection? Because there was a time that it was not. There is a time it is. There is a time where something else is going to take its place, and then the projection is going to be resolved and another projection is going to start. And besides, the thing upon which this projection is made is finite or infinite? Finite, definitely. So that thing is also going to combust at some point, leaving one very, very sad all the time, leaving one feeling that somehow this Ananda is elusive, somehow I have to experience this bliss, capital B. I don't know why they do that. Even in this translation that we are reading, it is, it is this bliss. I just tried to find something that is, where the words are all explained so it will be easy for you. But we never use the word bliss. Other than if you're talking of ice cream. There is one ice cream called coconut bliss. Okay, that's fine. Because this bliss is not different from you. It is the same thing. So therefore, do you understand why that the object joy and the subject joy are one and the same? Do you see that? And do you see how we make a mistake? Just like we project the snake on what? On the rope. Similarly, the subject joy is transferred onto the objects. Perhaps this is the first case of psychological transference. Where the subject joy is transferred onto the objects, leaving the subject always feeling helpless, discontented as a result. Because when you give up that ownership of that joy onto the object, then you feel empty. Naturally, because then you point over there and say, this is the play, this is what is making me happy. And that also becomes the fertile breeding ground for addictive behaviors. Because the more I counter that object, the more I see my own joy projected there, and the more I attribute the object for that joy, mistaking the object for a joyful object, and the more I want contact with it, because I come to the erroneous conclusion that it is going to fill me up. Unlike the rope snake, this is what is a positive transference. What is the name of that? Yesterday I explained. What is the name for the positive transference?
Shobhana.
We have lots of time. I'm going to wait. Shobhana. Yeah, say it. Shobhana. Adhyasa. Adhyasa means aropa, same thing. Yeah. Adhyasa means projection. Yeah. So projecting a thing, what is the definition of adhyasa? Atasmin tad buddhi. Atasmin means in the thing that it is not. That buddhi. So where it is not, I have the buddhi of that which is not. I have that particular buddhi there. For example, in the rope, is there snake or not? No. Thank God. Yeah. But then I see the not rope on the rope, correct? So the snake is not rope, but the not rope is forcefully projected on the rope. This is called adhyasa. So visualizing, imagining, projecting, seeing, discerning a thing in a place where it is not is adhyasa. This is Adi Shankara's definition, atasmin tad buddhi. It is beautiful. It is fantastic. Yeah. And so if you make a count of how many adhyasas you are committing every single day, you will run out of paper, I tell you, to write down. Because everything, the whole thing is adhyasa. And this is what is the wheel of the Jagat, the giant wheel. You know, there is this big thing, what is it called? Ferris. Yeah. Ferris wheel of the Jagat moves on adhyasa. The moment you withdraw the adhyasa back from where it was projected, then there is no samsara for you, there is no karma for you, there is no karta for you, there is no action, there is no actor, there is no duality. So it's all about withdrawing the projection. How? Cognitively. So we are talking of a projection within a projection. Now we are going very high level Vedanta, but it's okay. You can take it, yeah. Very high level this is. So we are talking of a projection within a projection. The first projection is what? The projected Jagat, correct? Who projected the Jagat?
Ishvara.
Ishvara projects the Jagat. So in this projected Jagat, is there duality or not? Yes, there is duality. So there are many bodies, there are many trees, there are many rivers, many things that move and don't move. So there are so many objects, so many species, so much diversity. And here comes the Jiva, who is non-separate from Ishvara, but out of a sense of finiteness and helplessness has carved itself a little miserable niche of being and talks about itself in the most derogatory terms. I'm not happy, I'm small, I'm not all, I'm, because I'm not the cause. I'm odd, but certainly I'm not God. This is the Jiva's lament. So enter this Jiva, but the Jiva is not separate from Ishvara. And so, sharing the same, the same identity, the Jiva has great prowess of projection also, albeit in an inhibited way. Jiva also projects. And what does this helpless, hapless, hopeless Jiva project? Its own fears, its own desires. Whatever it wants, it projects. So this is mithya within mithya, Jagat already mithya, and this is a double mithya. And that is why it becomes so difficult to be able to, withdraw this projection within the projection. Very difficult. To understand it is first of all difficult. So as soon as I see that if I have moved away from the Shanta Vritti, and we have explained at length what that Shanta Vritti is, I have gone into a realm of the projection within projection. Does anybody remember what the name I gave for that? In some other classes? The projection within projection is called Satyam, Mithya, and what is the third word? Pratibhasikam. Yeah. So, projection within projection is called Pratibhasikam. Pratibhasikam. I'll spell it for you. So this is one more reason. I'm giving you all the good reasons why to stay in the sattvic state of mind, because this is in my watch. It is under my, call to do this. Because the more I'm in pratibhasikam, the more I'm projecting wrong notions and ideas of my happiness onto the other things, the less I'm able to be in joy. And so the sattvic state of mind becomes a litmus test about the nature of whether my projections are in check or not. The more sattva prevails, which is my natural tendency, my projections go down. You see? The greater the sattva, less the projection. The more the projections, sattva has a sinking feeling. And then very soon it is lost. And that is why to get a sattvic state of mind, our whole lifestyle has to change to become sattvic. And this means what we take in, we talked about food yesterday. And to this I will add what we take in through the sense organs. For example, it is very, very difficult to be in a sattvic state of mind when you are constantly listening to heavy metal. Yeah. Because it's very, I have not listened, but I have heard that it can be very cacophonic. Oh, but these are different tastes. Why shouldn't I have my tastes? Have your taste. Be prepared later on to face distaste. That's all. Yeah. Have your taste. Nobody, this sattvic is so goody two shoes. All the time I have to be good and like the nice things and what is, where is the rebellion? Where is that my renegade nature? Just because I decided to study Vedanta. All the way from England or where have you, and now you now you are relegating me to this box that I have to fit in. This is not a box. Yeah, this is not a box. We are just talking of the inconsistencies, the discrepancies between the kind of life that one would like to have and the choices that one might make. And that whatever goes in through the senses has to come out in some way, correct? Yeah, what goes in must come out. So, it comes out in the form of the ghora and the mudha vrittis that we are going to discuss. The tamasic vritti and the rajasic vrittis, which we don't like. So therefore, if we are careful of what we put in, somebody said, I'm not able to sleep at night. This is a real thing that happened. I said, why? Is some problem? Are you stressed? No, I'm not stressed. I have a very good life. Okay, so that one is, crossed off. Have you gone to the doctor? Yes, I have gone to the doctor. They find nothing is wrong. Then I was even more intrigued. So I said, what do you do before you sleep? I watch horror movies. So, the horror movie with all the blood and the gore and the nail biting suspense is not a very good precondition for sleep, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is what, this is exactly these things we have to think about, and this is a very obvious example. But we have to think for each of ourselves, what are our behaviors? What are the things that we are ingesting through the ears, through the eyes, through the taste buds, through the nose, through all the sense organs? What kind of things are we putting into this body-mind-sense complex that might affect the state, the equilibrium? This is what we have to think about. And very soon we will find that all those behaviors which we have classified as my identity, this is who I am, this is a statement of my expression in the world, are just various ways of addictive behavior, are just various so many projections. Really, do you need some kind of cacophonic music to define who you are? Really? No, but even Krishna has the flute in his hand. He has some desires. He wears yellow dress, pitambara dhari. He has a peacock feather always, and he has a flute. Even he likes flute. So why are you asking me to give up my music when Krishna can have his flute? Well, the difference between Krishna and the Jiva is what?
Yeah.
Krishna can let go of the flute very easily. The Jiva cannot. Whether it's lute or flute, the Krishna can let go. Saraswati has lute, Krishna has flute. They can let go of them. It does not define who they are. So in the wise and in Bhagavan, the desires become a glory. The desires become a glory. And in this glory, you can afford this glory if they are dispensable. You can enjoy things if they are dispensable. And so the binding states of mind, which is Rajas and Tamas, are directly connected to the binding desires. Again, to quote the Bhagavad Gita, Kamoshtmi Bhartarshabha. I am in the form of desire. Says Bhagavan Krishna, in every heart I reside as desire. But that desire that doesn't go against the cosmic flow called dharma. So that means what? If the desire is binding, it causes problem. What is a binding desire? A desire without which I feel like I cannot live. This is binding. This is the definition of binding desire. So to the ability to convert the binding desires latent in the heart into non-binding desires is a great blessing. And the moment I do that, my quality of life increases. So there is a samatha, an equilibrium, without the highs and the lows. The highs nobody minds. But unfortunately, the higher you go, there is a long way to fall. So I learn to modulate. I become the thermostat for my reactions. And I keep myself as much as possible in a sattvic state of mind by adopting consciously a sattvic lifestyle. And it's very difficult to do on one's own. That is why we have satsang, where everybody, inspires everyone else to follow this. And then, and then what happens is that the more one is in a sattvic frame of mind, my happiness is in my hands. So I have wrested the happiness from the joys, attributed to the joys, back to myself. I'm repatriated with my own nature. And this is how, yesterday I said, Maya paints with the palette of Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. This is how to just come out of the painting. Because as long as I'm caught in the three, in this, especially Rajas and Tamas, the colorations, it's like I have walked into the painting, like some horror movies and stories are there. Some kind of surreal story, where, you have like Alice in Wonderland. Through the looking glass, she went into there and found this whole world mirroring her own desires and fears. And that's what we have done, thanks to the crutches called Rajas and Tamas. The Rajasic and Tamasic states of mind have propelled us into this dark looking glass of ignorance and various ghouls and ghosts that it projects. And one becomes, subject to the fears and to the pains and sorrows of one's own creation. And so therefore, to walk out of that is great grace. And to come back to the sattva is important because I retain my sanity and then I wrest the joys away from the object back to the subject. And I walk out of the Maya's painting, this Maya's horrific painting of the Jagat, I walk out of. And then I can stand as a museum spectator, a much safer place to be. I am the witness of the painting of this whole Jagat of Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. I can appreciate it without being necessarily horrified by it and walking into it and feeling entrapped by it. And so, let us continue with the description of the other two states. It will help if I turned around the book so it is facing the correct way. Alright. Which verse is that? 4 or 3?
Shantagora is 3 and Krishna Sneha is 4.
Okay. Shantagora, that we have seen, yeah. Then Trishna, longing. Yesterday we saw that. I'm just quickly updating. Sneha. Sneha, although it means a good thing, it means affection in colloquial language. But the real meaning, the etymological meaning in the Sanskrit language is a clinging, clawing thing. Like oil is called sneha. Oil is sneha. Snigdha, oily, sticky, like taffy, like oil, some viscose. It has a certain viscosity, that kind of a substance. And this sneha is not good news here, okay? Yeah. Then we have raga. We have already talked about raga. What is raga?
Strong preference.
Strong
preference.
Strong preferences. Raga includes dvesha. And lobha. Raga causes lobha. What is lobha?
Greed.
Avarice, greed. Okay? So, all this, the raga causes lobha. This is very much connected to the two things. The raga means the desire for something causes there to a feeling of I must have this, and when? Yesterday. I have to have this yesterday. And I have to have it now. And then of course the next desire is I have to have it forever. Right? So this is this lobha. And then ityadya ghora vrittayaha. Ityadyaha ghora vrittayaha. So the rajasic state of mind is a state of mind that has an excess of, and I have to say excess of, because not that in the Shanta state of mind there are no desires. The desires are there, but that bite is not there. It's like when you put your hand in the mouth of a baby that is yet to cut its teeth, and it will maybe clamp down on your finger, but you don't get hurt, correct? So the desire is like that. The Shanta desires are like the toothless baby's mouth, where even if it clamps down the jaws, it doesn't bite. So it's like that. So here we are not talking of those kinds of desires. We are talking of excessively difficult preferences. And this is a bane of the contemporary society, no matter where we live. This I have said so many times. A 2-year-old is asked, "What are you going to have for breakfast?" The mother asks, the father asks. In my time, that was not there. Mm-hmm. Whatever the mother cooked, grandmother cooked, that was what was for breakfast. And if the child pushed the plate away and said, "I'm not having that," then the mother would say, "Don't worry, you'll definitely love lunch." And if you don't like lunch, you will definitely eat anything that is given for dinner. And it's not that it's not that the parents were being cruel. This is a different model of child raising, which comes from India, because it is seen that it is shown that to raise a child with least preferences is good for it. And why is it good for it? Because it's very difficult to fulfill desires. It's not easy. So same thing with the clothes. I don't remember in my childhood, for example, going to the store and picking out what I wanted. Sometimes it was something somebody wore. Sometimes whatever the mother and the father went and got, that is what I mean. Never did I have that. And never did I feel, because we didn't know better. This was our generation. And never did we feel that, we are being deprived of having the choice of doing X, Y or Z. And then, And then if somebody gave you a present, this was probably the hardest part. If somebody gave you a present, you did not have the right to open it, culturally. You took it to the most elder person, whether it was mother, father, grandmother or grandfather. And this happened to me. I remember I was 4 years old and somebody brought this present and I was very excited. I said, oh, this is for me? Yes, oh, somebody gave me something? How come? Is it a mistake? No, they really gave me? Oh, great. But then the rule made it so that I had to go and give it to the grandmother. The grandmother looked at it and then distributed it to all the people present, you know. And still, I was not thinking anything. I was only 4. And then I got my share, whatever it was. I think it was something to eat. I don't remember what it was. And then it was some kind of a sweet with various colors. And then there was a cousin, you know, who very close to me in age. And the cousin said, you know, that's mine, meaning the one I had. And took that as well. And so of course I said, what is this happening? First it went to the whole village and then and then next whatever was supposed to come to me is also not there. And the grandmother said very, very clearly that you know what, you can choose to grieve over this. And it would be valid for you to grieve over this. Because that was already swaha by the time both those things were already eaten. And the grandmother said, you can choose to grieve over this, but you will be a bigger person and a better person if you choose not to grieve over this. And the words have stayed with me till now. And of course I said, why don't you tell her that? The one who, why don't you tell her that? It's because you can understand. That's what she said. Because you are in a place of understanding. Why should I waste my breath telling somebody who will not understand? So I'm going to tell you because you understand. You can definitely grieve over this. It is valid to grieve over this. But you need not. And it's a choice. And there is that freedom. There is that freedom. That is that, that is the way of raising children in India, where the focus is not on giving them what they want. The focus is on reducing their ragadveshas. The parents do everything to reduce the ragadveshas. And sometimes they go the other way. And this is not just in India, in Asian societies also. Earning people, earning some mothers the very, problematic epithet of tiger mom. A tiger mom is one who never praises her child. Maybe tiger dads are also there, we don't know. A tiger mom is one who never praises the child, never gives it any positive reinforcement. Why? Because sukha dukkhe same kritva labha labhau jaya jayau. They are trying to live the Gita. This is somewhere in China. But somehow there is a certain cultural similarity in all these societies. But that is on one end of the continuum. We are not talking of that. So there is a certain way in which in the olden days the child was raised in Asian cultures to not have preferences, to have just basic things and be content with what there is. And I think the reason was so that this Shanta Vritti could predominate most of the time. And so if you can make do with very little, then if you have a lot, then you are so happy. But if you need a lot to begin with, and then you have to make do with very little, then you're the most unhappy person. And so the Ghora Vritti is propelled and fueled by ragadveshas, by strong preferences that make life miserable. Not because it is wrong to have preferences or even strong preferences, but because fulfilling them is a big chore. Big chore. I want this, but I don't want it mixed with that. Sometimes people say this. I'll have the salad, but bring the dressing on the side. And I'll have this, but without this, I won't have this. And how many ways can you have coffee? Caf or decaf? What is decaf? Coffee without coffee. Oh, I think I'll have just coffee. Okay, caffeinated. Then with or without sugar? With sugar. How much sugar? 1 or 2? Okay, 1. And then with or without cream? Okay, with cream. Okay, whole milk? 2%? 1%? Or non-fat milk? I want 0.5%. No, I'm actually allergic to milk. Okay, so lactose free. Lactose free milk, milk without milk, inside coffee without coffee, and garnished by sugar without sugar. This is the modern state of being. And then also, one has a lot of baggage to carry. If you have a lot of preferences, then you know, when you go somewhere, you have to take so many things with you to make sure that you are happy. And then you convince yourself, without coffee, I get an allergic reaction, so I have to have this, I have to have that. And also, not just physical baggage, the physical baggage you carry is a reflection of the mental baggage. Yeah, you go for a weekend Vedanta retreat with 5 suitcases. Yeah. 10, if you count the mental ones also. And so, this is Ghora Vritti, which turns your world upside down. And it's called Ghora, terrifying, because it is based on Rajas. And Rajas indeed is terrifying, because it has its home in anger. What is the connection between Ragadveshas and anger? Again, it is explained very beautifully in the Bhagavad Gita, that if my desires are not fulfilled, I get angry. Sangat sanjayate kamaha, kamat krodho bhijayate. First there is association with the object of love, and then I want it. How come it's not mine? And then if there is any inhibition in getting the desire fulfilled, if something inhibits the desire from getting fulfilled, immediately one turns to anger. And this is a travesty. So the Ghora Vritti is self-destructive, because it boils the blood, it makes one a very angry person. And then the anger doesn't remain anger, it turns into resentment. And that's when the resentment builds. It builds in the body, it builds in the bones, it makes one ill. Literally. A lot of illnesses are traced to anger and resentment. In Ayurveda and Chinese medicine, the anger is connected to the functioning of liver and gallbladder. So a lot of anger, that's why they say bilious, Yeah, the bile is connected to anger. So there will be disturbances in the digestive system when there is anger. And in certain animals there is total absence of anger. Like the deer. They have studied the deer and they have said that it can experience fear, it can experience so many other emotions, but it doesn't have anger. And interestingly, it also doesn't have a gallbladder. Yeah. It's a very fascinating signature of Bhagavan to see this. And so to keep the anger at bay is not possible without reducing the preferences. And to reduce the preferences is in my hands, not in the hands of the neighbor. It's in my own hands. And so that becomes a main homework for reducing the Ghora Vritti. And if the Ghora Vritti is allowed to go on, what happens? It converts itself into Tamasik Mudha Vritti. There is a debacle. This is the debacle. Like I said, the angry cannot stay angry for long. Anger turns into resentment. And the resentment, when you say resentment, there is always a imagery of a build-up, isn't there? Yeah. And that built up anger, slips into what is called Tamasik tamasic vritti. And what is the other name for that in the book? Moodha vritti. Yeah. So the resentment translates into depression, into apathy, into a non-participation in life, into a certain kind of a passive-aggressive, what is it called, rebellion against life, where one gets stuck in the place of the bhokta, which this is very important to know. What is bhokta? The victim. In this case, we translate as the victim. Yes, experiencer, but in the context, we translate bhokta as the victim. So the moodha vritti, the tamasic vritti, makes one a victim of circumstances, a helpless, hapless, hopeless victim, where there is no agency, where there is no understanding of how to come out of this. Always I'm looking for a savior, help me, save me, trahimam, pahimam. And the person keeps blaming the guru and blaming the God. You are not giving me Vedanta, the person says. And the person blames Bhagavan also. What a horrible lifeline you have given me. Ishvara also is blamed. God is blamed. God is not left out of the equation. And then the teacher is blamed. Everyone else is blamed except looking at what a sorry state of affairs I have fallen into and how can I help myself. So this is the moodha vritti. So the ghora vritti is where there is excessive kartritvam. Kartritvam means the doership that is directed to wrong channels of wish fulfillment. The doership can be directed to proper channels like karma yoga, doing what I am supposed to do, doing things that will help clear the cave of the heart of all the stalactites and stalagmites of doubt, so that the knowledge can preside, doing things so that I help myself to this teaching and I help myself to bring myself back to the Shanta Vritti. That is also proper doership. But here the improper doership is becoming a slave and following wherever the desire, the stray desires might lead. And it's always to a ditch or a dead end. Following dead end desires, I become deadened. Yeah. That is what happens. I become deadened. And therefore, so the ghora vritti keeps one spinning in the cage of kartritvam, doership, and the moodha vritti keeps one imprisoned in the cage of a victim, bhoktritvam. So therefore, let us look at the moodha vritti a little more in a little more detail. Yeah, I will answer the questions at the end of class. So don't feel like, you don't have to interrupt the listening. Yeah, Rajasic, Tamasic, perhaps this is the first class you are listening to. So you can go back and read what is there. It is there in the text. You can look at it later. Sammohaha. And I told you what does the prefix sam mean? Very well. Mohaha, from muh, to be deluded. So what is sammohaha?
Well deluded.
Nicely deluded. Not just deluded, but perfect delusion. If there is a perfection in delusion, this is it. This is it, folks. Sammohaha, that is the first characteristic, the first characteristic of what? Moodha vritti. Then bhayam.
Depression.
Not depression.
Fear.
Fear. Ityadyaha. Ityadyaha means etc. etc. So if there is fear, definitely there will be depression. And the fear is of what? The fear is of things being taken away. The fear is of survival. The fear is of the deep insecurity, which is the characteristic of every jiva. But the resentful Jiva that has separated itself due to self-ignorance from the whole thinks itself to be helpless, so that fear and helplessness go together. And because of fear, one becomes territorial, one starts to hoard all kinds of things. And there is even a show, I think, where they take the cameras. I saw this one somewhere. Yeah, they take the cameras into this, barely the crew can even fit, it's full of stuff. This person has gone completely wild with this insecurity and started to pile up things in the house. Orders?
Hoarders.
Hoarders, yeah, hoarders. And they have hoarded so much that there is no place to set foot. They are living outside in the tent, and the house is having all the things, and there is all kinds of things, and of course there is no hygiene, and the cockroaches are roaming freely, and God knows what all other bugs. And the TV crew comes with great trepidation, and amidst the sounds of yikes, oh my God, look at this, oh no, look at that. They zoom in on every single bug, and they show in what a sorry state the house is. They put this person in the hotel, and then they they bring a lot of these dumpster trucks, and then they fill them up, because this person is the person sometimes has to be taken out in chains because they are not willing to let go of the possessions. The possessions have started to define the person. And this is an extreme case of sammoha mudha vritti, the total tamas of completely being identified with the jagat and all the things outside of myself. So you see, there is a gradual descent from sattva to tamas, from shanta vritti to mudha vritti. And ityadya, adipadat, because of the word etc. is used, we have to reckon depression, anxiety, apathy, and personality disorders all come under mudha vritti, because the personality has been pushed to a corner. And and most of the so-called personality disorders are actually manageable. You can manage them if you manage to live in the shanta vritti. But if you let it take over, it will create and wreak havoc. So all this comes under the shanta vritti, and then under the mudha vritti. Yeah. Now, vrittishvetasu sarvasu brahmanaschit svabhavata pratibhimbati shantasu sukhancha pratibhimbati. Yeah. Vrittishu, in all these vrittis, sarvasu, all of them, brahmanaha, of Brahman, chit swabhavata. Chit swabhavata means the chit aspect, the consciousness aspect of Brahman. Actually the aspect is not really, it's an aspect. The consciousness which is Brahman is pratibhimbati, is reflected in the shanta vritti, or in the sattvic state of mind. What happens? The happiness, the Ananda is also reflected. Really, so beautiful. This says it all. The 5th verse says it all. So, basically, when we talk about Brahman, and this is, we'll have to take it up in a little, I'm just going to give a little short thing, and tomorrow we'll take it up in detail. So Brahman is defined by 3 words, Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, or Sat, Chit, Ananda. Sat and Chit are manifest as soon as you say, I am here. This is why we did that exercise earlier. But generally when I say, are you here? What is the answer that comes? Yes. Unfortunately, I'm still here. So what happened to the Ananda aspect? So it says here very clearly that the Sat and Chit are reflected no matter what, but for the Ananda, you have to do a little, you have to keep the medium of expression clear. And what that entails and what the Sat, Chit and Ananda aspects are, we will see tomorrow. Tomorrow we have the same class. Yeah, Tuesday to Friday we have this class. Fantastic. Wonderful. Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Boliye, any questions? Are there any questions? Yeah. What is tamasic? Yeah, you spelled it already. Rajasic, it's spelled with a J. And you download this book, no, Jonathan? It is here. Download the book, it will tell you everything. There is an e-book that we have put up here. Let's see where that is. Yeah, Panchadashi chapter 15. Click on that and click download to my computer, and you will get all the answers. Read the first few pages of chapter 15. Okay? Yeah. Any other questions? I have noticed that because I was raised Christian, there is some fear about it not being safe to say, I am the all. How to manage that? Very easy, because that is what you really want to be. You are not, you are not happy being just by yourself. You are not happy being all. And in fact, if you do a Vedantic reading of the Bible, and actually I gave a couple of lectures on Vedanta and the Bible here in Eugene itself a couple of years ago. You please look at that. I will send you the link. You please listen to that. Yeah, that's why we have to send it.
They're on the website already, so you put all the links.
Yeah, so the links are on the website. So go under archived class links. So there is a couple of lectures on Jesus and Vedanta. Because if you really look at the Bible from where I sit, from looking at it from the broadest point of view, there is really no difference. There is not as much of a difference as we think. So the interpretation really, helps. And then, do we have any plans of 3 years residential course?
We do.
Kya baat hai? Yeah. So, don't know, yeah. I don't make any plans. I just respond to plans made, that's all. So, Rajas is the driving force behind every activity. Can Sattvic, Tamas produce their own effect, or Rajas makes them act? No, we have to not confuse. Arunaji, this is a good question. I'm glad you asked it. We have to not confuse between the forces of nature, Rajas, Tamas and Sattva, where they are necessary, and the states of the mind where one or the other predominates. Those are two different things. Yeah. So the Maya's painting palette becomes a prison when I let it overpower me. So we are talking of an overwhelming presence, a preponderance, if you will, of the Ghora or the Mudha Vrittis. So that is when it becomes a problem. And that is when we are talking of a state of imbalance. Like somebody asked, if there is no Rajas in me, why should I get up in the morning? So that is not what we are talking. So the body will go through. The body is subject, as the mind is subject to various the gunas of Maya. But the I is not subject to this. And the closest connection where the I is most well known and well discerned is where? In the mind. And so if I keep the mind trained to be in Sattva, then the Rajas and Tamas will not disturb me. Will not disturb me, that is the idea. And so let us, और क्या है? coming to Vedanta in middle age, maybe we'll be better grandparents than parents. You are a great mom. What are you talking about? You are the best, one of the best mothers I know. Yeah. You are a good mother. You don't even have to think like that. Yeah. Or kya? Any other questions here? Okay.
So I do have a question, and very practical. So my grandson, if he does not get what he wants, he starts screaming.
Yes.
He starts crying.
Yes.
So I try to explain to him why not. It goes into this state. So what can I do?
Send him to India for a few years. And if that's not possible, pray.
I would love to take
Yeah.
him.
Pray. You just have to pray. What else can you do? You pray, because we have so many challenges right now. So many challenges. And one of the reasons why children have tantrums is because they have insecurities. See, now both the parents work, and the parents themselves have a lot of guilt because they are working. And so they try to give the child everything it wants out of a sense of guilt. That's not correct, actually. So, so our parenting ways have changed. How we treat ourselves, how we treat our children has changed. So therefore the old ways are not there. So we have to forge a new covenant of child rearing, and you have to we have to train ourselves to be able to watch their disappointment without getting disappointed ourselves. That is what it is. Yeah, wonderful. Okay, I don't think I have missed any questions. All the best. Om. This evening we have Bhagavad Gita. Correct?
No?
Yes,
Not
chapter.
Katha
No, that was it.
Bhagavad Gita at
6.
6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time in United States. Om.